Kyle Donovan was the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire in his early 30s who ran one of the fastest-growing tech companies in San Francisco. His life seemed flawless, a sleek penthouse, a luxury car collection, and invitations to every elite social gathering. But for all his wealth, Kyle's heart was cold, and his trust in people ran thin. He believed everyone had an ulterior motive, especially women. That was until a chance encounter on a rain-soaked street corner flipped his world upside down. Enter Claire Matthews, a homeless woman with nothing but a backpack, a tattered journal, and a fiery determination hidden beneath her worn-out exterior. It was a gloomy Wednesday evening, and Kyle was rushing to meet his business partner, Lucas, at an exclusive downtown restaurant. His umbrella had snapped under the ferocious wind, leaving him drenched. As he crossed an alley, a loud argument caught his attention. Claire stood there, clutching her belongings as two men yelled at her for refusing to move from a spot near their coffee shop. Her defiance was admirable, but her trembling hands revealed her fear. Against his better judgment, Kyle stepped in. "Leave her alone," he ordered, his commanding tone silencing the men. Claire, taken aback, stared at him with piercing green eyes. "I didn't ask for your help," she said, her voice sharp but laced with vulnerability. Kyle smirked. "You didn't have to." After the confrontation, Kyle offered to buy Claire a meal. She refused at first, pride getting the better of her, but hunger eventually won. Over greasy burgers and fries at a nearby diner, Claire revealed bits of her story: a failed startup, mounting debts, and losing her home after a series of unfortunate events. Kyle listened intently, intrigued by her quick wit and sharp observations about the business world. There was a spark in her, a mix of intelligence and grit that reminded him of himself. On a whim, he made an outrageous offer. "Come work for me. I'll give you a place to stay and a chance to get back on your feet." Claire narrowed her eyes. "What's the catch?" Kyle chuckled. "You tell me. You've got nothing to lose." Against her better judgment, Claire accepted. Moving into Kyle's world was jarring for Claire. She traded a park bench for a guest suite that rivaled the size of most apartments. However, the transition wasn't smooth. Kyle was a demanding boss, skeptical of Claire's abilities despite hiring her as an assistant. She worked tirelessly, analyzing market trends and streamlining operations, but her ideas were often dismissed. Claire's breakthrough came during a critical board meeting. When Kyle's pitch for a new product line flopped, Claire boldly stepped in with a revised strategy. The board was skeptical, but her confidence and thorough research won them over. After the meeting, Kyle confronted her. "You had no right to speak for me." Claire met his glare head-on. "Your pitch was weak, and you know it. I saved that deal." To his surprise, Kyle felt a mix of irritation and respect. As weeks turned into months, Claire's influence on the business grew. She uncovered inefficiencies, negotiated better deals, and introduced innovative ideas that began to pay off. But their relationship remained strained. Kyle's guarded nature clashed with Claire's blunt honesty. Tensions boiled over one evening when Kyle accused her of trying to overshadow him. Claire snapped. "Do you think I care about your ego? I'm here because you gave me a chance when no one else would. But if you can't see the value I bring, I'll leave." Kyle was stunned into silence. That night, Kyle reflected on Claire's words. For the first time in years, he admitted he might have been wrong about someone. The next day, he called her into his office. "You're staying," he said simply. And I'm promoting you to a strategic advisor. Claire raised an eyebrow. Does this mean you'll actually listen to me? Kyle smirked. Don't push your luck. As they shook hands, a fragile trust began to form, a partnership that would change both their lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. A millionaire's unexpected ally, Claire Matthews, once homeless and overlooked, now had a seat at the table of Kyle Donovan's thriving company. Her ideas were turning heads, but not everyone was thrilled about her rapid ascent. While Kyle began to see her potential, others in his circle grew wary of the woman who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Claire wasn't just battling prejudice, she was battling her past. And someone from it was about to resurface. As Kyle's new strategic advisor, Claire immersed herself in the company's operations. Her instincts and unconventional methods yielded results, but not without stirring resentment among the senior staff, particularly Lucas Crane, Kyle's longtime business partner. During a meeting about expanding into a competitive international market, Claire suggested a bold move, cutting ties with their largest but outdated supplier to invest in a promising startup manufacturer. Risky, Lucas said, his voice dripping with skepticism. Too risky for our brand. Claire held her ground. We're losing market share because we're playing it safe. Innovation requires calculated risks. Kyle, to everyone's surprise, sided with Claire. She's right. Let's make the change. Lucas shot Claire a cold glare, one she wouldn't forget. Later that evening, Lucas confronted Kyle. She's dangerous, Lucas warned. We don't know anything about her. What if she's playing you? Kyle waved him off. Claire's sharp. She's helping us grow. But Lucas wasn't convinced. Determined to expose her, he hired a private investigator to dig into Claire's past. Claire had no idea her past was under scrutiny. But while working late one night, she received a call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end sent chills down her spine. Claire, it's Dylan. Remember me? Dylan Cole, her former business partner and the man responsible for the collapse of her startup, was back. He demanded a meeting, threatening to reveal secrets that could ruin her reputation if she didn't comply. Panicked but resolute, Claire met Dylan in a dimly lit diner. You've come up in the world, Dylan sneered. But we both know you wouldn't be here if it weren't for my help. You sabotaged me, Claire shot back, her voice trembling with anger. You forged documents and left me to take the fall. Dylan smirked. Details. But I'm willing to let bygones be bygones, for a price. Claire realized he wanted money, but she refused to let him manipulate her again. Do what you have to. I'm not afraid of you anymore. The next day, Kyle noticed Claire was unusually quiet. During a strategy session, she missed several key points, which was unlike her. After the meeting, he confronted her in his office. What's going on with you? He demanded. Claire hesitated, torn between keeping her troubles to herself and confiding in him. Finally, she said, someone from my past is trying to blackmail me. Kyle's jaw tightened. Who? It doesn't matter, she said quickly. I can handle it. Kyle leaned back in his chair, studying her. You don't have to handle it alone. If this affects the company, I need to know. Claire's defenses rose. This isn't about the company. It's personal. The tension between them was palpable, but before either could say more, Lucas barged in. We've got a problem. He tossed a file onto Kyle's desk. Inside were photos of Claire meeting Dylan at the diner. Care to explain this? Lucas asked, his tone accusatory. Claire's heart sank. The photos painted a damning picture, but Claire refused to back down. She told Kyle and Lucas the truth about Dylan and his threats. Kyle's expression darkened as he absorbed her words. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I knew how it would look, Claire admitted. And because I didn't want my past to jeopardize everything I've worked for here. Lucas, however, wasn't convinced. This is exactly why she doesn't belong here. She's a liability, Kyle. But Kyle surprised them both. If what she's saying is true, she's not the problem, Dylan is. He turned to Claire. Give me his contact information. I'll handle this. Claire stared at him, both grateful and conflicted. You don't have to, I do, Kyle interrupted firmly. You're part of this team, and I protect my team. As Claire left his office, her emotions were a whirlwind. For the first time in years, someone had her back. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a bigger battle. Claire thought her past could no longer haunt her, but Dylan's reappearance was a harsh reminder that the ghosts of betrayal don't fade easily. Kyle's unexpected decision to intervene left her conflicted, grateful for his support yet worried it would only drag him into her storm. Meanwhile, Lucas Crane wasn't ready to let the matter rest. His distrust of Claire grew, and he secretly devised a plan to remove her from Kyle's company for good. But what no one anticipated was that Dylan's motives went deeper than blackmail. Kyle wasted no time arranging a meeting with Dylan. In a private lounge at an upscale hotel, Kyle entered with his usual commanding presence. Dylan, confident in his leverage, greeted him with a smug smile. I assume Claire's told you all about me, Dylan began, swirling a glass of whiskey. Kyle didn't waste words. I know you're blackmailing her. Name your price, and then disappear. Dylan chuckled. You think it's that simple? Claire owes me a lot more than money. And maybe you should wonder why she hasn't told you the whole story. Kyle's gaze hardened. What are you implying? Dylan leaned forward. She wasn't just my partner. We were close. And when things fell apart, she didn't exactly come clean about her own role in it. Kyle refused to bite. You're lying. Maybe, Dylan said with a shrug. But the truth has a funny way of coming out. Back at the office, Kyle's conversation with Dylan lingered in his mind. Though he wanted to trust Claire, the possibility of her withholding details nagged at him. Claire noticed the shift in his demeanor immediately. He was more curt, avoiding eye contact during meetings and keeping their interactions strictly professional. Unable to bear the tension, Claire confronted him one evening. Did you meet Dylan? She asked directly. Kyle nodded. I did. He says there's more to your story than you've told me. Claire froze. And you believe him? I don't know what to believe, Kyle admitted. You've been honest about some things, but if there's anything else I need to know, now's the time. Her chest tightened with anger and hurt. I've told you everything that matters. If you're going to start doubting me now, maybe Lucas was right, I don't belong here. Kyle's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, letting her walk out of the office. As the rift between Kyle and Claire grew, Lucas seized the opportunity to strike. He leaked the photos of Claire and Dylan to the media, framing it as a secret deal that could tarnish the company's reputation. The fallout was immediate. Headlines like, Kyle Donovan's right hand, a fraud with a shady past, dominated the news cycle. Investors began to panic, and Kyle's team scrambled to control the narrative. Claire was blindsided. "You think I leaked this?" she demanded when Kyle summoned her to his office. Kyle shook his head. "No. But someone's using your past to hurt us." Lucas entered, feigning concern. "The board's asking for her resignation," Kyle asked. "If we don't act, the damage could be irreversible." Claire glared at Lucas. "You did this, didn't you?" Lucas smirked. "Prove it." Kyle raised a hand to silence them. "Enough. I need time to think." Claire stormed out, feeling defeated. She packed her things, prepared to walk away for good. But as she stepped outside, a flash of cameras greeted her. Reporters bombarded her with questions about Dylan and her alleged schemes. Kyle watched from his office window, torn between his responsibilities to the company and his instincts to protect Claire. Finally, he made a decision. He called a press conference the next morning. Standing before a sea of reporters, Kyle addressed the scandal head-on. "Claire Matthews is not a fraud," he began, his voice firm. "She's an integral part of this company's success, and I stand by her." The reporters buzzed with questions, but Kyle wasn't finished. "The person behind this smear campaign isn't Claire, it's someone trying to sabotage us. And I intend to find out who." Backstage, Claire watched in disbelief. For the first time, she saw Kyle's unwavering trust in her, despite everything. With Kyle's public defense buying them time, Claire and Kyle worked together to trace the leak. Their investigation led them back to Lucas, whose connection to the private investigator was uncovered. When confronted, Lucas denied everything. "I was trying to protect the company. Claire is a risk, and you know it." Kyle didn't hesitate. "Pack your things. You're done here." Lucas's face turned red with fury. "You'll regret this, Kyle. She'll ruin you." As security escorted Lucas out, Kyle turned to Claire. "I should have trusted you from the start." Claire smiled faintly. "I'm not perfect, Kyle. But I'm not your enemy." Kyle extended a hand. "Then let's finish what we started, together." As they shook hands, the weight of the past began to lift. But both knew the road ahead would be anything but smooth. A millionaire's unexpected ally, with Lucas exposed and expelled, the storm seemed to settle at Kyle Donovan's company. But the scars of betrayal ran deep, and Claire Matthews wasn't ready to let her guard down just yet. Meanwhile, Dylan Cole wasn't finished with his games. Humiliated by Kyle's intervention and desperate for revenge, Dylan escalated his threats, determined to destroy both Claire and the company she was now deeply invested in. This time, the stakes would test Claire and Kyle's fragile alliance like never before. Kyle and Claire worked tirelessly to repair the company's damaged reputation. Investors were reassured, and the media frenzy around Claire began to die down, thanks to Kyle's public defense. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that her position was still precarious. One evening, as they reviewed reports in Kyle's office, she hesitated before speaking. "Why did you stand by me?" she asked quietly. Kyle looked up, surprised. "Because I believe in you. And because you've proven you deserve to be here." Claire smiled faintly. "Not many people would have done what you did." "Thank you." Kyle gave her a small nod. "Just don't make me regret it." Unbeknownst to them, Dylan had been busy. Using his connections, he managed to infiltrate Kyle's company by bribing a disgruntled employee in the finance department. His goal was to sabotage an upcoming merger Kyle had been working on, a deal that could catapult the company into international markets. Dylan's plan began with a cyber attack, leaking sensitive financial documents to the public. The breach sent the company into chaos, with accusations flying and trust within the team unraveling. Claire immediately suspected Dylan's involvement. "This has his fingerprints all over it," she told Kyle during an emergency meeting. Kyle nodded. "Then we need proof. And fast." While investigating the breach, Claire received another call from Dylan. This time, his tone was colder, more menacing. "Impressive how far you've come," he sneered. "But you're still the same desperate girl I knew. Walk away now, or I'll burn everything you've built to the ground." Claire's temper flared. "You think I'm scared of you? Go ahead and try." But Dylan had one last card to play. "It's not just about you anymore, Claire. Kyle's company is already crumbling. When it falls, it'll be on your head." Shaken but determined, Claire decided to confront Dylan directly. She didn't tell Kyle, knowing he would disapprove, and instead went to meet Dylan alone in a secluded spot outside the city. Dylan was waiting for her, smug as ever. "I knew you'd come," he said. "Still playing the hero, huh?" Claire crossed her arms. "What do you want?" Dylan leaned back, his smile fading. "Revenge. Kyle humiliated me, and you ruined my life. Now, I want both of you to feel what it's like to lose everything." "You're pathetic," Claire snapped. "You had a chance to build something real, and you threw it away. That's on you, not me." But Dylan wasn't done. He revealed he'd planted false evidence that linked Claire to the cyber attack. "When Kyle finds out, do you think he'll defend you again?" Claire's heart raced. If Dylan succeeded, she'd lose everything she'd worked for, and Kyle's trust. Unbeknownst to Claire, Kyle had been tracking her phone. When she didn't return his calls, he became suspicious and traced her location. Arriving just in time, he overheard Dylan's threats and stepped in. "Enough," Kyle said, his voice cold and firm. Dylan turned, startled. "Well, if it isn't the knight in shining armor." Kyle ignored him and focused on Claire. "Are you okay?" Claire nodded, though her fear was evident. Kyle then turned to Dylan. "You've underestimated her, and me. Whatever you're planning, it ends now." Dylan smirked. Big talk for someone who's about to lose his company. Kyle stepped closer, his tone lethal. "You're the one who's finished. We have enough evidence to take you down, and when I'm done, you won't be able." With Dylan arrested for his role in the cyber attack and the false evidence against Claire exposed, Kyle's company began to stabilize. Claire's reputation was not only restored but elevated. Her determination and loyalty became a cornerstone of the company's new narrative. In the aftermath, Kyle and Claire shared a rare quiet moment on the rooftop of his penthouse. "You didn't have to come after me," Claire said softly. Kyle smirked. "You're part of this team. And I don't abandon my team." Claire chuckled. "You're starting to sound like me." Kyle leaned against the railing, looking out at the city. "Maybe. Or maybe I've just learned to trust the right people." With Dylan Cole behind bars and Kyle Donovan's company back on track, it seemed like the worst was finally over. Claire Matthews, once doubted by everyone, had proven her loyalty and value. But victory came at a cost. She and Kyle had both paid dearly to protect their hard-fought progress. However, every resolution brings new challenges. As Claire settled into her role with newfound confidence, the shadows of Kyle's past began to creep in, threatening not only their professional partnership but also the fragile trust and growing feelings they had started to share. After the chaos surrounding Dylan, Kyle decided to host a celebration dinner for his team at an exclusive restaurant. Claire, unused to such lavish events, felt a mix of pride and apprehension as she mingled with Kyle's top executives. During the evening, Kyle proposed a toast. To resilience, to loyalty, and to a future we've built together. Here's to overcoming challenges and thriving because of them. His gaze lingered on Claire as he spoke, and she felt a warmth rise in her chest. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. But the moment was short-lived. A woman entered the room, commanding attention. Dressed in a striking black gown, she approached Kyle with a confident smile. "Kyle," she said smoothly. "It's been too long." Kyle stiffened, his smile faltering. "Leona." Claire watched the exchange with curiosity and a twinge of unease. Leona Hayes, Kyle's ex-fiancée and a powerful businesswoman in her own right, had returned to the city after years abroad. Though their engagement had ended on rocky terms, she seemed determined to rekindle their connection. The next day, she visited Kyle's office unannounced. "Don't look so surprised," she said, seating herself across from his desk. "I'm back for business, nothing more." Kyle frowned. "What kind of business?" "I'm leading the acquisition of Vertex Tech," Leona replied, referring to one of Kyle's major competitors. "We'll be neighbors soon." "Isn't that exciting?" Kyle's jaw tightened. He knew Vertex Tech's acquisition would threaten his company's dominance in the tech market. Leona smiled, sensing his discomfort. "Oh, and by the way, I've heard about your new advisor. Claire, isn't it? She seems intriguing. Able to bribe your way out." As Leona began to make moves in the business world, rumors spread that she was poaching key clients from Kyle's company. The board grew anxious, and Kyle became increasingly frustrated. Claire noticed his growing tension and tried to offer solutions. "We need to focus on innovation," she suggested during a strategy meeting. "If we stay ahead of the curve, we can minimize the impact of Vertex's acquisition." Kyle snapped. "I don't need you to tell me how to run my company." Claire blinked, taken aback. "I'm trying to help. I didn't hire you to second-guess me," Kyle interrupted, his tone cold. Hurt but determined, Claire decided to give him space. But as the days passed, their once strong partnership began to fray. Leona, sensing the tension between Kyle and Claire, wasted no time exploiting it. She invited Claire to lunch under the guise of a friendly meeting, only to plant seeds of doubt. "Kyle's a complicated man," Leona said, sipping her wine. "He doesn't trust easily. And when he does, it can be fleeting." Claire frowned. "I'm not sure what you're trying to say." Leona smiled. "I'm saying be careful. Loyalty isn't always reciprocated." Though Claire tried to brush off Leona's words, they lingered in her mind. One evening, Claire found Kyle in his office, staring at a photo of him and Leona from years ago. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Why didn't you tell me about Leona's plans earlier?" Claire asked, her voice calm but firm. Kyle sighed. Because it's personal. Claire crossed her arms. This isn't just about you, Kyle. It's about the company. If we don't face this together, we'll lose everything we've built. Kyle hesitated before finally nodding. You're right. I've been shutting you out, and that's on me. Claire stepped closer. Then let me help. You don't have to face her alone. With renewed determination, Kyle and Claire devised a plan to counter Leona's moves. They focused on strengthening client relationships and launching a groundbreaking product line ahead of schedule. At the product launch event, Kyle publicly credited Claire for her contributions. This wouldn't have been possible without her vision and leadership, he said, earning her a standing ovation. Leona, watching from the sidelines, gave Claire a small, grudging nod. For now, she would retreat, but the battle was far from over. As the evening wound down, Kyle and Claire found themselves alone on the balcony. You're not just an advisor, Claire, Kyle said softly. You're my partner. And I trust you. Claire smiled, her heart swelling with pride. We've come a long way, haven't we? Kyle nodded. And we're just getting started. Claire Matthews and Kyle Donovan had finally regained their footing after weathering personal and professional storms. But just as they were beginning to see the fruits of their hard work, Leona Hayes, Kyle's shrewd ex-fiancée, was far from defeated. Determined to regain dominance in the tech market, Leona set her sights on dismantling Kyle's company and Claire's role within it. As the stakes rose, Claire found herself not only battling a formidable rival but also navigating her own feelings for Kyle, feelings that grew harder to suppress with every shared victory. In this episode, alliances are tested, secrets are revealed, and a single misstep could mean disaster. Leona's acquisition of Vertex Tech wasn't just about business, it was personal. She resented Kyle's success and the growing presence of Claire in his life. Using her newfound resources, Leona hired a team to dig into Claire's past, hoping to unearth a scandal that could ruin her credibility. Meanwhile, at Donovan Enterprises, Claire was spearheading a bold initiative to revolutionize their client engagement strategy. Kyle was impressed by her ideas, but he couldn't help noticing the strain she was under. You've been working late every night, Kyle said during a meeting. Don't burn yourself out. Claire smiled faintly. I'm fine. This is important. Kyle hesitated. If it's about proving yourself, you don't have to. You've already earned your place here. Claire's heart warmed at his words, but she pushed aside the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. Let's just focus on beating Leona. Leona's investigation bore fruit. She discovered a piece of Claire's past that Claire had deliberately buried. Years ago, during her time on the streets, Claire had been arrested for a minor theft. Though the charges were dropped, the incident painted a picture Leona could manipulate. She leaked the story to the media, spinning it as proof that Claire was unfit to hold a high-ranking position at Donovan Enterprises. Headlines like, "Kyle Donovan's trusted advisor, a criminal past uncovered," began circulating, and social media exploded with speculation. Kyle's board members demanded a response. This is a PR nightmare, one of them argued during an emergency meeting. We can't afford to have her here. Kyle stood his ground. Claire's past has no bearing on her ability to do her job. She's staying. But the pressure mounted as clients began questioning their association with the company. Claire, humiliated and furious, confronted Kyle. You're losing clients because of me, she said, her voice tight with emotion. Maybe the board is right. I should step down. Kyle's expression hardened. You're not going anywhere. This is exactly what Leona wants, to divide us. I won't let her win. Claire's resolve wavered. Why are you so sure I'm worth all this trouble? Kyle met her gaze. Because I've seen who you are, Claire. You're stronger than anyone I know. And I'm not about to let your past define your future. His words bolstered her, but she knew the fight was far from over. Determined to turn the tide, Claire and Kyle devised a plan to not only counter the scandal but also expose Leona's underhanded tactics. They arranged for a televised interview where Claire would tell her story on her own terms. Sitting across from a well-known journalist, Claire spoke candidly about her past. Yes, I made mistakes, she admitted. But I've worked hard to rebuild my life and prove that I'm more than my worst moments. Kyle Donovan gave me a chance, and I'll keep earning that chance every day. The interview garnered widespread support, with many applauding her honesty and resilience. Public sentiment began to shift, and Leona's smear campaign lost traction. As Claire and Kyle celebrated their small victory, a new revelation surfaced. A whistleblower from Vertex Tech came forward with evidence that Leona had been engaging in illegal practices to secure her acquisitions. Kyle and Claire wasted no time presenting the evidence to the authorities. Leona was publicly disgraced, her empire crumbling as investigations began. When Leona confronted Kyle one last time, she was a shadow of her former self. You think you've won? She spat. Kyle's expression was cold. No, Leona. I think I've done what you never could. I built something worth fighting for. With Leona out of the picture, Kyle and Claire turned their focus back to the company. The ordeal had strengthened their partnership, but it also brought them closer on a personal level. One evening, as they reviewed plans for an upcoming project, Kyle hesitated before speaking. You've changed everything for me, he said softly. Claire looked up, surprised. What do you mean? Kyle smiled. You've shown me what loyalty and determination look like. And, you've made me realize I don't want to face the future without you. Claire's heart raced, but she smiled. Then let's build that future together. As they shared a quiet moment, the city skyline stretching out before them, it was clear that this was just the beginning of their story. With Leona Hayes defeated and Kyle Donovan's company on solid footing once again, the storm seemed to subside. Claire Matthews, once underestimated, had solidified her role not just as a trusted advisor but also as a key partner in Kyle's life, both professionally and personally. However, peace was fleeting. A new player entered the game, Carter Reynolds, a cunning venture capitalist with a reputation for hostile takeovers. He saw Donovan Enterprises as his next conquest and was willing to go to any lengths to seize control. As Claire and Kyle navigated the next chapter of their journey, their growing relationship faced its most significant challenge yet. Would they stand united, or would Carter's schemes drive them apart? The opening scene finds Claire and Kyle enjoying a rare moment of calm. Kyle invited Claire to a charity gala, where they mingled with city elites. As they danced, Claire couldn't help but smile. You're surprisingly good at this, she teased. Kyle smirked. Surprisingly? Fine, you're impressive, she admitted, laughing. Their light-hearted moment was interrupted when Carter Reynolds approached them, his sharp suit and confident demeanor commanding attention. Kyle Donovan, Carter said, extending a hand. I've heard so much about you. Kyle's expression tightened. Carter. To what do I owe the pleasure? Carter's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just exploring new opportunities. You know how it is. Kyle knew exactly what that meant, and his jaw clenched. The next day, news broke that Carter had purchased a significant number of Donovan Enterprises shares, though not enough for control. It was a clear signal that he intended to take over. In the boardroom, Kyle's team was in a frenzy. He's positioning himself for a hostile takeover, one executive warned. Claire leaned forward, her mind racing. We need to rally shareholder support and prove our long-term strategy. If we show stability and growth, they'll resist his offer. Kyle nodded. Start preparing the materials. I'll reach out to key stakeholders personally. Carter wasn't just targeting the company, he was targeting Claire. He began spreading rumors among the board members, suggesting she was influencing Kyle's decisions for personal gain. The tension boiled over during a heated meeting. You've let her get too close, one board member accused Kyle. This is why Carter is gaining ground. Claire spoke up. I've done nothing but work to strengthen this company. If you want to question my loyalty, go ahead, but don't mistake my dedication for weakness. After the meeting, Kyle found Claire in her office, visibly upset. You don't have to fight them alone, he said gently. Claire turned to him, her voice firm. I don't want you to defend me, Kyle. I want to prove myself. Kyle hesitated. You don't have to prove anything to me. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that her presence was making Kyle's fight against Carter even harder. Carter's next move was more personal. He approached Claire privately, offering her a lucrative position at his firm. You're too smart to waste your talents here, Carter said smoothly. Kyle's company is a sinking ship, and you deserve better. Claire glared at him. I know what you're trying to do, and it won't work. Carter chuckled. You're loyal, I'll give you that. But loyalty doesn't pay the bills when a company collapses. Claire walked away, more determined than ever to help Kyle stop Carter. Claire proposed an innovative solution to outmaneuver Carter, launching a groundbreaking initiative that would not only attract new investors but also reaffirm shareholder confidence. It's risky, Kyle admitted during a late-night brainstorming session. But it's worth it, Claire countered. We need to show everyone that we're stronger together, and that Carter doesn't stand a chance. Kyle smiled, his admiration for her evident. You always seem to know exactly what we need. At the next shareholders' meeting, Kyle and Claire presented their vision for the company's future. Claire spoke passionately, sharing how her unconventional background gave her a unique perspective on innovation and resilience. Her authenticity resonated, and the shareholders voted overwhelmingly to reject Carter's bid. Carter, humiliated, stormed out of the room. Before leaving, he warned Kyle, this isn't over. Later that evening, Kyle and Claire celebrated their victory over dinner. You saved this company, Kyle said, raising his glass. Claire shook her head. We saved it together. Kyle reached across the table, taking her hand. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what we've built. I don't just trust you, Claire. I care about you. More than I've ever admitted. Claire's breath caught, but she smiled. I care about you too, Kyle. But if we're going to do this, we need to be honest, with each other and with ourselves. Kyle nodded. No more secrets. Just us. As they toasted to their new chapter, the future looked brighter than ever, but they both knew more challenges lay ahead. With Carter Reynolds defeated and Donovan Enterprises securing its place in the market, Kyle Donovan and Claire Matthews seemed poised to start a new chapter. Their growing personal connection gave them strength, but the business world had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. A new crisis emerges when a mysterious cyber attack threatens to dismantle everything Kyle and Claire have built. As secrets are exposed and loyalties are tested, Claire finds herself caught between her dark past and the brighter future she's trying to build. Donovan Enterprises headquarters was abuzz with excitement over the successful launch of their new product line. Claire and Kyle barely had a moment to breathe when the entire office was plunged into chaos. Emails stopped working. Servers crashed. Customers began reporting breaches in their accounts. Kyle stormed into the IT department. "What's going on?" "We've been hacked," the lead technician said grimly. "And it's bad. They've encrypted our entire system and are demanding a ransom to release it." Claire's stomach sank. "How much are they asking for?" $5 million, the technician replied. "And if we don't pay, they'll leak sensitive company and client information." Kyle and Claire convened an emergency meeting. "This has Carter Reynolds written all over it," Kyle said, his tone sharp. Claire frowned. "It's possible, but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind it before we make any moves." They hired a top cybersecurity team to trace the source of the attack. Meanwhile, Claire began digging into company records, searching for any internal vulnerabilities. During her investigation, Claire uncovered a chilling clue: an old alias of hers had been used to breach the system. Her heart raced as she realized what it meant. The hacker was someone from her past, a man named Jack Calloway. Years ago, Jack had been a part of the same underground network Claire had turned to for survival during her time on the streets. She thought she'd left that world behind, but Jack had clearly resurfaced, and he wasn't just after money, he wanted revenge. Claire hesitated before telling Kyle. "There's something you need to know," she said quietly. Kyle looked at her, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" Claire explained everything: her connection to Jack, their shared history, and how he might be using her past against her. Kyle was stunned but quickly masked his emotions. "Why didn't you tell me about this before?" "I didn't think it would matter," Claire admitted, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to drag you into it." Kyle's expression softened. "You should have trusted me. But we'll handle this together." Jack contacted Claire directly, sending her a cryptic message: "You owe me, Claire. Meet me alone, or I'll destroy everything you care about." Claire knew it was a trap but felt she had no choice. Without telling Kyle, she agreed to meet Jack in a secluded warehouse. When she arrived, Jack greeted her with a sly grin. "You've done well for yourself," he said, circling her like a predator. "But you forgot where you came from." Claire stood her ground. "What do you want, Jack?" "I want my share," he said, his voice cold. $5 million, or I'll burn Donovan Enterprises to the ground." Unbeknownst to Claire, Kyle had tracked her location and arrived moments later with a private security team. Kyle stormed into the warehouse, his face a mix of anger and determination. "Let her go," he demanded. Jack smirked. "Ah, the knight in shining armor. You're too late, Donovan." The tension escalated as Jack's men appeared, blocking the exits. But Kyle's security team was prepared, and a standoff ensued. In the chaos, Claire managed to grab Jack's laptop, hoping to find evidence that would clear her name and stop the attack. Kyle's team subdued Jack's men, and the police arrived to take Jack into custody. Before being dragged away, Jack sneered at Claire. "This isn't over. You'll never escape your past." Claire handed the laptop to the cybersecurity team, who quickly decrypted the files and neutralized the attack. Back at the office, Kyle and Claire sat together, exhausted but relieved. "You took a huge risk going there alone," Kyle said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I didn't want you to get hurt because of my mistakes," Claire replied. Kyle shook his head. "You're not in this alone anymore, Claire. We're a team." Claire met his gaze, her eyes glistening. "Thank you for standing by me." Kyle smiled. "Always." As the company recovered from the attack, Kyle and Claire's bond grew stronger. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way, together. After overcoming countless challenges, Kyle Donovan and Claire Matthews believed they had weathered the worst storms. But the final chapter of their journey presents their greatest test yet. The fallout from Jack Calloway's cyber attack left Donovan Enterprises vulnerable, and while the company was on the mend, a deeper betrayal threatened to shatter everything. Claire's past, once a source of strength, now resurfaces in an unexpected way, forcing her to confront the ghosts she thought she'd left behind. In this gripping conclusion, Kyle and Claire must decide if their partnership is strong enough to withstand betrayal, heartbreak, and sacrifice. The episode opens with Kyle and Claire returning to work after the cyber attack. Though the company was back on track, tensions simmered among the board members, investors, and even employees. Kyle stood before his executive team, addressing the aftermath. "We've faced worse," he said confidently. "We'll rebuild, stronger than ever. But we need to remain united." Claire watched him, her admiration for his leadership growing. She knew they'd come far, but she couldn't shake the feeling that another storm was brewing. As the company rebuilt, strange anomalies began appearing in their systems again. Minor glitches, missing files, and unauthorized access attempts suggested someone was still working against them. Claire and Kyle investigated, but the culprit remained elusive. Meanwhile, an anonymous tip to the press claimed Donovan Enterprises was involved in illegal dealings, claims that could destroy their reputation if proven true. Kyle turned to Claire. "This can't be random. Someone inside the company is feeding information to the press." Claire nodded, her mind racing. "We need to find them before it's too late." After weeks of digging, Claire uncovered a shocking truth. The leaks and sabotage were coming from someone she trusted, Kyle's longtime assistant, Laura Jenkins. Laura had been working secretly with Carter Reynolds, who was determined to bring Kyle and Claire down after his earlier defeat. Carter had promised Laura a fortune in exchange for insider information. When confronted, Laura broke down. "I never wanted to hurt you, Kyle," she sobbed. "But Carter offered me more than I could ever dream of. I thought it was just business." Kyle's face darkened with betrayal. "You were like family, Laura. How could you do this?" Claire stepped in, her voice steady. "We need to focus on damage control. If Carter has this information, he's already planning his next move." Carter's next move was bold. He attempted to take over Donovan Enterprises by buying out key shareholders using Laura's stolen data to discredit the company. In a desperate race against time, Claire and Kyle devised a high-risk strategy to expose Carter's underhanded dealings. They gathered evidence of his illegal activities, including Laura's confession and Jack Calloway's earlier statements. At an emergency shareholder meeting, Claire stood before the board and investors, presenting their case. "This company was built on resilience and integrity," she said passionately. "We've faced challenges before, and we've always come out stronger. Carter Reynolds represents everything we stand against. If you give in to him, you're not just giving up on Donovan Enterprises, you're giving up on its future." Kyle joined her, his voice firm. "We won't back down. Not now, not ever." The room erupted in applause as shareholders rallied behind them, rejecting Carter's hostile bid. With their support secured, Kyle and Claire handed over their evidence to federal authorities, who launched an investigation into Carter's illegal activities. Carter was arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. As he was led away in handcuffs, he glared at Kyle and Claire. "You think this is the end?" he sneered. "You'll never be rid of me." Kyle's response was calm but resolute. "This is the end for you, Carter. We're just getting started." With Carter defeated and Laura facing legal consequences, Kyle and Claire turned their focus to rebuilding trust within the company. They implemented new security measures, strengthened their leadership team, and worked tirelessly to restore their reputation. Claire also took a moment to confront her past. She visited the shelter where she'd once stayed, offering a large donation to support other women who needed a fresh start. "You've come a long way," one of the staff members said. Claire smiled. "And I'm not done yet." On a quiet evening, Kyle invited Claire to his estate. They sat on the patio, overlooking the city skyline. "This feels different," Claire said, breaking the silence. Kyle nodded. "It is. For the first time, I feel like everything's finally in its right place." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Claire's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Claire Matthews," he said, his voice steady, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me what it means to fight for something real. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Claire's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Kyle. 1,000 times yes." They embraced, their journey coming full circle. From a chance encounter to a partnership forged in fire, their story was one of resilience, love, and redemption. The series ends with a glimpse of their future, Kyle and Claire, side by side, leading Donovan Enterprises into a brighter era. Their bond, stronger than ever, promised that no challenge would be too great to overcome. Sometimes, life gives you a second chance. It's up to you to take it, and make it count.